The wound is the gateway to your purpose. Within the silent depths of your suffering lies a profound truth that the world seldom acknowledges. The quiet, unspoken pain that dwells beneath the surface of human existence is not a mark of frailty but a crucible of transformation. You suffer. You rise. You become the quiet force that reshapes your destiny. It is not in the absence of pain that your spirit is forged, but within it, where the raw and unrefined elements of your being are tempered and molded. This is the silent transformation of pain into power, a metamorphosis that demands your courage to confront what is hidden rather than to veil it in denial or distraction. The wound is the gateway to your purpose. To embrace pain is to engage in a sacred act of acknowledgement, a deliberate turning towards the very fissures that threaten to fracture your sense of self. In this embrace, you find not weakness but a reservoir of strength that pulses beneath the surface, waiting to be claimed. Pain, when met with quiet resolve, reveals the contours of your vulnerability and invites you to understand the intricate architecture of your inner world. This is no easy path, for it requires the dismantling of illusions and the willingness to dwell in discomfort without surrender. Yet within this discomfort lies the fertile soil from which resilience and meaning take root. Within pain, your strength is born. Consider the Stoic wisdom of Marcus Aurelius, who reminds us that the impediment to action advances action. What stands in the way becomes the way. Your suffering is not merely an obstacle but the very path you must walk. It is the invitation to awaken to the depths of your existence, to recognize that the human experience is inseparable from the trials it entails. To confront pain is to claim your agency in the face of adversity, to refuse the temptation of escape and instead cultivate an intimate relationship with your wounds. This relationship is the foundation of your transformation, the silent power within that begins to pulse with purpose. The wound is the gateway to your purpose. It is here, in the quiet acknowledgement of your suffering, that you begin to unravel the layers of your resilience. You do not need to justify your healing, nor explain the contours of your pain to the world. This is a sacred process between you and yourself, a dialogue that demands patience and compassion. In this space, you come to understand that pain is not a sign of defeat but a signal of life's profound depth. It is the shadow cast by your capacity to feel, to love, to endure. This shadow, when held with reverence, becomes the canvas upon which you paint your story of endurance and emergence. You suffer. You rise. You become the quiet force that reshapes your destiny. The act of confronting your pain quietly, without fanfare or resentment, is itself a testament to your resilience. It is the deliberate choice to stand amidst the storm rather than flee from it, to listen attentively to the language of your wounds rather than silence it. Within this listening, you discover that pain is a teacher, one that imparts lessons in humility, strength, and the art of surrendering without losing oneself. This is the paradox of suffering: it demands surrender yet cultivates mastery, it breaks yet builds, it wounds yet heals. Transformation is the silent power within. In the depths of your pain, you begin to see that the very act of bearing your suffering with grace and fortitude is an act of creation. The wound, once perceived as a chasm of despair, becomes a wellspring of purpose, a source of meaning that extends beyond the self. It beckons you toward a life lived with intention, a life that honors the scars as sacred marks of survival and growth. To walk this path is to embrace the full spectrum of your humanity, to acknowledge that within every wound lies a wellspring of purpose waiting to be drawn forth. Within pain, your strength is born. This strength is not the loud clamor of triumph but the quiet, steady flame that refuses to be extinguished by hardship. It is the resilience that dwells in the silent moments of reflection, the unspoken resolve that carries you through the dark nights of the soul. The wound is the gateway to your purpose, and within it, you find the courage to face the unknown terrains of healing and transformation. This courage does not boast or demand recognition, it simply persists, a testament to the indomitable spirit that dwells within you. You don't need to justify your healing. To acknowledge your pain is to grant yourself permission to embark on this inward journey without apology or explanation. It is a sovereign act of self-respect, a declaration that your suffering has value and meaning beyond the immediate experience of hurt. In this acknowledgement, you begin to shift your perspective, seeing pain not as a force that diminishes you but as a catalyst that propels you toward growth. The wound is the gateway to your purpose, and by approaching it with quiet courage, you open the door to a deeper understanding of yourself and the world. Suffering is not surrender. It is the conscious choice to remain present with your pain, to bear witness to its reality without being consumed by it. This presence is a form of mastery, a reclaiming of your narrative from the chaos of affliction. You suffer. You rise. You become the quiet force that reshapes your destiny. The transformation that unfolds within this space is subtle yet profound. It is the slow unfolding of a new self, one that is forged in the fires of adversity and tempered by the wisdom gained through enduring. This self does not seek to erase the pain but integrates it into a larger tapestry of meaning and purpose. The challenge itself is the path forward. Pain, in its deepest sense, is an invitation to awaken to the full reality of your existence. It beckons you to explore the landscapes of your inner life with honesty and courage. Within every ache, every sorrow, lies a hidden message, a call to deepen your understanding of who you are and what you are becoming. The wound is the gateway to your purpose, and by embracing this truth, you begin to chart a course toward healing that honors the complexities of your experience. This journey is neither swift nor easy, but it is authentic and transformative. Within pain, your strength is born. This strength is the silent power that grows not in spite of your suffering but because of it. It is the emergence of a deeper self, one that carries the imprint of hardship yet moves forward with grace and intention. The wound is the gateway to your purpose, a threshold that beckons you to step beyond victimhood and into self-mastery. As you stand at this threshold, you realize that your pain is not a prison but a portal, a passage through which you transcend limitations and embrace the fullness of your humanity. You suffer. You rise. You become the quiet force that reshapes your destiny. This is the rhythm of transformation, the steady cadence of one who has chosen to meet pain with openness rather than resistance. Within this choice lies the beginning of healing, the first step toward reclaiming your power and purpose. The wound is the gateway to your purpose, and by embracing it, you begin to awaken to the silent strength that resides within. This strength will carry you forward, through the shadows and into the light of renewed meaning and resilience. Transformation is the silent power within. As the depths of your pain begin to unfold, you come to understand that suffering is not a void to be feared but a fertile ground from which purpose emerges. The wound is the gateway to your purpose, and within this passage lies the profound journey from mere endurance to meaningful existence. You suffer. You rise. You become the quiet force that reshapes your destiny. This journey is neither linear nor effortless. It is a deliberate reframing of your experience, a conscious choice to see your suffering not as a burden to carry alone but as the catalyst for a deeper self-discovery and a call to contribute beyond your own pain. Within pain, your strength is born. To traverse the terrain from suffering to purpose is to engage in a dialogue with your inner self that demands intentional reflection and self-compassion. It is not a process of hurried escape from discomfort but a measured descent into the shadows where your authentic self waits to be reclaimed. This reflection is a sacred act, a space in which you examine the contours of your pain with curiosity rather than judgment, allowing it to teach rather than torment. The wound is the gateway to your purpose, and through this openness, you begin to recognize that the lessons embedded in your suffering are gifts disguised in hardship. You suffer. You rise. You become the quiet force that reshapes your destiny. In this transformation, pain ceases to be a mere experience of loss or injury and becomes the foundation upon which your purpose is constructed. Purpose born from pain is not a superficial or abstract ideal, it is an authentic and enduring force rooted in the lived realities of your struggle. It is the fruit of your vulnerability and resilience intertwined, a testament to your capacity to find meaning where others see only despair. This is the silent power within, the alchemy of turning sorrow into strength, confusion into clarity, and fragmentation into wholeness. The wound is the gateway to your purpose. Through deliberate reflection, you cultivate the ability to listen deeply to the narrative of your suffering, discerning its messages and extracting its wisdom. This process is neither passive nor facile. It requires patience and gentleness toward yourself, a willingness to sit with discomfort without condemnation. In this space, self-compassion becomes a vital companion, softening the harsh edges of pain and opening the door to healing. It is here that the seeds of purpose take root, nourished by acceptance and the quiet resolve to transform adversity into a source of growth. Within pain, your strength is born. The journey from suffering to purpose is marked by a profound shift in perspective, one that elevates your experience from victimhood to authorship. You begin to see yourself not as a passive recipient of hardship but as an active participant in your own healing and meaning-making. This agency is the cornerstone of empowerment, the quiet force that propels you forward even when the path is obscured by doubt and fear. The wound is the gateway to your purpose, and by stepping through it with intention, you reclaim control over your narrative and redirect your energy toward goals that resonate with your deepest values. You suffer. You rise. You become the quiet force that reshapes your destiny. This ascent is not marked by grand gestures or outward accolades but by the steady cultivation of inner clarity and resolve. Purpose born from pain is a quiet flame that illuminates your way, guiding you through moments of uncertainty and despair. It calls you to live with authenticity, to align your actions with the lessons distilled from your suffering. This alignment is the essence of true empowerment, a force that radiates from within and inspires others by example rather than proclamation. Transformation is the silent power within. As you continue this journey, you discover that your purpose is inseparable from the compassion you cultivate for yourself and others. The wounds you carry become bridges that connect you to the shared human experience, fostering empathy and understanding. This connection deepens your sense of meaning, transforming personal pain into a wellspring of hope and contribution. The wound is the gateway to your purpose, and through this realization, you embrace your role not only as a survivor but as a beacon of resilience and transformation. Within pain, your strength is born. Purpose forged in suffering carries an authenticity that cannot be fabricated or imposed. It arises organically from the depths of your lived experience, embodying the complexity and nuance of your journey. This authenticity resonates with a quiet power that transcends external validation, grounding you in a sense of self that is both humble and unshakable. You suffer. You rise. You become the quiet force that reshapes your destiny. In this becoming, you learn that true empowerment is not the absence of hardship but the mastery of response, the art of transforming adversity into a source of enduring meaning. The wound is the gateway to your purpose. This gateway invites you to dwell in the paradox of suffering and growth, to hold both the pain and the promise within your heart simultaneously. It is a threshold that requires courage to cross, for it demands that you look honestly at the scars you bear and recognize them as integral to your identity. Through this recognition, you cultivate a resilience that is both creative and expansive, enabling you to transcend the limitations imposed by past wounds. This is the silent transformation of pain into power, the quiet alchemy that shapes your destiny. You don't need to justify your healing. The journey from suffering to purpose is deeply personal, a sacred passage that defies simplistic explanations or societal expectations. It is your story to tell, your path to walk, and your purpose to claim. Within pain, your strength is born, not as a fleeting triumph but as a steady flame that endures beyond momentary victories. The wound is the gateway to your purpose, and by embracing this truth, you open yourself to a life rich with meaning, compassion, and quiet empowerment. You suffer. You rise. You become the quiet force that reshapes your destiny. This is the rhythm of transformation, the unfolding of a self that is both shaped by suffering and defined by resilience. Purpose born from pain is the beacon that guides you through the shadows, illuminating a path toward wholeness and grace. It is the silent power within that sustains you, the wellspring of strength that carries you forward with unwavering resolve. The wound is the gateway to your purpose, and through this passage, you step into the fullness of your becoming, ready to live with intention and quiet mastery. The wound is the gateway to your purpose. Within the stillness of reflection, you find the wellspring of inner strength that pain quietly cultivates. Transformation is the silent power within, a force that does not announce itself with thunder but grows steadily in the depths of your consciousness. You suffer. You rise. You become the quiet force that reshapes your destiny. This strength is not born from loud victories or dramatic upheavals but from the patient, deliberate act of turning inward to meet your pain with clarity and acceptance. In this meeting, you reclaim your narrative, no longer a captive to suffering but a steward of your own becoming. Within pain, your strength is born. The process of harnessing this strength demands a cultivation of patience, a willingness to linger in discomfort without haste or judgment. This patience is not passive resignation but an active engagement with your inner world, a commitment to understand the lessons encoded in your wounds. Reflection becomes the crucible where your pain is transmuted into wisdom, where the rawness of suffering is shaped by the discerning mind and softened by the compassionate heart. The wound is the gateway to your purpose, and through this reflective practice, you begin to build a foundation of resilience that is unshakable. You suffer. You rise. You become the quiet force that reshapes your destiny. It is within this quiet force that mastery takes root, the mastery of self over circumstance, of intention over reaction. Reflection is the tool by which you navigate the labyrinth of adversity, tracing the contours of your pain to uncover hidden strength. This strength is not measured by the absence of struggle but by the depth of your understanding and the grace with which you carry your burden. Transformation is the silent power within, a subtle alchemy that turns the weight of suffering into the lightness of purpose. The wound is the gateway to your purpose. In this gateway lies an invitation to cultivate acceptance, not a passive acquiescence but an active embracing of reality as it is. Acceptance frees you from the chain of resistance that magnifies suffering and instead opens a space for growth. To accept your pain is to acknowledge its place within your story without allowing it to define the whole. Within this acceptance, you find the courage to learn from adversity, to listen deeply to what your suffering reveals about your inner landscape. This listening is the genesis of self-awareness, the cornerstone of inner strength. Within pain, your strength is born. This strength flourishes in the fertile ground of self-awareness, where you cultivate a conscious relationship with your challenges. Reflection becomes a mirror, revealing not only your wounds but also your capacity for resilience and transformation. You do not deny the reality of your suffering, rather, you engage with it fully, discerning its nuances and honoring its presence. The wound is the gateway to your purpose, and by walking through this gateway with mindful intention, you reclaim your power and set the course for meaningful growth. You don't need to justify your healing. The act of reflection is a sovereign space, a sanctuary where your healing unfolds on your own terms. Here, you are not beholden to external validation or the judgments of others. Instead, you cultivate a quiet mastery that arises from self-compassion and honest inquiry. Within this space, the narrative of pain is transformed from one of victimhood to one of agency. You become the author of your own story, wielding reflection as both shield and compass in the face of adversity. You suffer. You rise. You become the quiet force that reshapes your destiny. This quiet force is the embodiment of resilience, a creative energy that emerges when you harness your pain through mindful reflection. It is the steady flame that endures beyond momentary despair, illuminating a path toward purpose and fulfillment. Transformation is the silent power within, a force that does not seek to erase suffering but to integrate it, allowing it to inform and enrich your journey. The wound is the gateway to your purpose, and through this integration, you cultivate an inner strength that is both profound and enduring. The challenge itself is the path forward. Reflection reveals that adversity is not merely a barrier to overcome but a teacher guiding you toward deeper self-mastery. Each trial presents an opportunity to refine your understanding, to cultivate virtues such as patience, courage, and humility. In embracing the challenge, you move beyond the instinct to resist or escape and instead engage in a dance with your suffering, learning its rhythms and discovering its hidden gifts. Within this dance, your inner strength grows, a silent power that sustains you through the darkest hours. Within pain, your strength is born. This strength is a quiet force that steadies your hand and clarifies your vision. It is the resilience that arises when you cease to fight against your wounds and instead make peace with them, allowing their lessons to shape your character. The wound is the gateway to your purpose, and by embracing this gateway with mindful reflection, you build a reservoir of strength that supports your ongoing transformation. This reservoir is not finite but replenished with each act of acceptance and introspection. You suffer. You rise. You become the quiet force that reshapes your destiny. Through reflection, you cultivate an empowered presence that carries you beyond the limitations imposed by past pain. You learn to navigate your inner landscape with wisdom and grace, responding to hardship not with despair but with deliberate intention. Transformation is the silent power within, a force that moves gently yet persistently, guiding you toward a life of purpose and fulfillment. The wound is the gateway to your purpose, and within this gateway lies the invitation to deepen your self-awareness and harness the quiet strength that emerges from within. Within pain, your strength is born. This strength is the result of a mindful journey inward, where reflection serves as both guide and companion. It is a process that requires courage to face your suffering with honesty and compassion, to learn from it rather than be consumed by it. The wound is the gateway to your purpose, and through this process of reflection, you reclaim your narrative, transforming pain into a source of empowerment. You don't need to justify your healing, it unfolds in the sacred space of self-awareness, where resilience is nurtured and inner strength flourishes. You suffer. You rise. You become the quiet force that reshapes your destiny. This is the rhythm of transformation, the steady cultivation of a strength born not of avoidance but of engagement. Within this strength lies the capacity to create meaning from adversity, to harness the lessons of pain as fuel for growth. Transformation is the silent power within, a force that does not rush but moves with deliberate grace, guiding you toward a life lived with intention, authenticity, and quiet mastery. The wound is the gateway to your purpose, and through reflection, you step fully into this power, ready to shape your destiny with resilience and wisdom. Within pain, your strength is born. Resilience reveals itself not merely as the endurance of hardship but as a creative force that sculpts your identity and directs the course of your life. The wound is the gateway to your purpose, and through this portal, you step into the active role of architect, no longer a passive vessel shaped solely by circumstance but a deliberate creator of your own story. You suffer. You rise. You become the quiet force that reshapes your destiny. This transformation is not a static event but an ongoing process of growth fueled by the quiet power that dwells within, a creative energy that continually renews and redefines you. The challenge itself is the path forward. Resilience demands more than persistence, it calls for the courage to transcend the narrative of victimhood and claim authorship over your existence. In this claiming, you begin to weave the threads of your suffering into acts of kindness, advocacy, and personal metamorphosis that ripple outward beyond the self. The wound is the gateway to your purpose, and through this gate, your resilience becomes a beacon that illuminates not only your path but also inspires others to seek their own renewal. This is the silent transformation of pain into power, where your endurance becomes a wellspring of creative force. Within pain, your strength is born. This strength is the dynamic energy that moves you from survival to creation, from reaction to intention. It is the manifestation of a spirit that refuses to be defined solely by what has been lost or broken. Instead, it is shaped by the choices you make in response to suffering, the choices to act with compassion, to advocate for justice, and to transform personal wounds into sources of collective healing. The wound is the gateway to your purpose, and through this transformation, resilience becomes an active force that shapes not only your identity but also the world around you. You suffer. You rise. You become the quiet force that reshapes your destiny. This rising is marked by a quiet but profound shift, from being shaped by adversity to shaping your own narrative with creativity and intention. Resilience is not a destination but a continuous journey, a creative process that unfolds in the choices you make each day. It is the steady crafting of a life that honors your pain while refusing to be confined by it. The wound is the gateway to your purpose, and within this gateway lies the power to transform suffering into a source of innovation, growth, and meaningful contribution. Transformation is the silent power within. As you embrace this power, you recognize that resilience is an act of creation, a force that enables you to reconstruct your life with purpose and meaning. This creative resilience manifests in myriad ways, in the small acts of kindness extended to others, in the courage to speak your truth, in the dedication to causes born from your own experience of suffering. Within pain, your strength is born, and through this strength, you become an agent of transformation, not only within yourself but within the larger tapestry of human connection. The wound is the gateway to your purpose. It beckons you to move beyond survival toward a life imbued with intentionality and creativity. Resilience becomes the brush with which you paint your evolving identity, the instrument through which you compose the narrative of your growth. You don't need to justify your healing. Instead, you embody it through the creative acts that flow naturally from a heart shaped by both pain and hope. You suffer. You rise. You become the quiet force that reshapes your destiny. This is the ongoing dance of resilience, a creative force that continually renews and redefines your purpose. Within pain, your strength is born. This strength is not static but alive, a vibrant energy that fuels your transformation and propels you forward. The wound is the gateway to your purpose, and through this gateway, you harness resilience as an active power that shapes your life with intention and grace. It is the creative impulse that moves you to transform past suffering into future possibility, to build bridges from your wounds to new horizons of meaning. Transformation is the silent power within, the quiet force through which you become the architect of your own destiny. You suffer. You rise. You become the quiet force that reshapes your destiny. This becoming is marked by a profound reclaiming of your agency, a shift from being shaped by the past to shaping the future. Resilience emerges as a creative force that turns pain into purpose, suffering into strength, and hardship into hope. The wound is the gateway to your purpose, and through this gateway, you step into a life of intentional creation and ongoing growth. This is the silent transformation of pain into power, a quiet yet unstoppable force that reshapes your identity and illuminates your path forward. The challenge itself is the path forward. Resilience invites you to engage actively with your suffering, to recognize its value not only as a test of endurance but as a source of creative energy. Each challenge becomes an opportunity to craft new meaning, to forge new connections, and to expand the boundaries of your selfhood. Within pain, your strength is born, and through this strength, you become a living testament to the transformative power of resilience as a creative force. The wound is the gateway to your purpose, and through this gateway, you are called to build a life that reflects the depths of your growth and the breadth of your courage. Within pain, your strength is born. This strength is the foundation of your creative resilience, the wellspring from which acts of kindness, advocacy, and transformation flow. The wound is the gateway to your purpose, and by embracing this gate, you claim your role as creator of your own story. You suffer. You rise. You become the quiet force that reshapes your destiny. This quiet force is the manifestation of resilience as a dynamic and creative energy, one that shapes your identity and life direction with intention and grace. Transformation is the silent power within, the ongoing process by which you turn pain into purpose and suffering into strength. The wound is the gateway to your purpose. In the quiet embrace of your pain, you find a power that requires no proclamation, no external applause, only the steady affirmation of your own becoming. Transformation is the silent power within, a force that calls you to live authentically, to align your existence with the purpose forged through suffering. You suffer. You rise. You become the quiet force that reshapes your destiny. This quiet force moves beneath the surface of the world's clamor, yet its impact ripples outward, creating a legacy not of grandiosity but of profound meaning and deliberate intention. Within pain, your strength is born. This strength is not contingent on recognition or validation from others, for it is a sovereign power that arises from the depths of your own experience. You don't need to justify your healing, it unfolds in the sacred space between your wounds and your will to transform. It is here that silent empowerment takes root, a form of power that does not seek to dominate but to align, not to conquer but to harmonize with the rhythms of life. The wound is the gateway to your purpose, inviting you to live in accordance with the lessons distilled from suffering, to embody a purpose that resonates with the deepest currents of your soul. You suffer. You rise. You become the quiet force that reshapes your destiny. This reshaping is not a fleeting moment of victory but a lifelong journey of intentional living. Purpose born from pain demands your presence, your dedication to a path that honors both the scars and the strengths they reveal. Transformation is the silent power within, urging you to move beyond external validation and to cultivate an inner life rich with meaning and integrity. The wound is the gateway to your purpose, and through this gateway, you step into a life marked by authenticity and quiet mastery. Within pain, your strength is born. This strength inspires others not through loud declarations but through the steady example of resilience and grace. Your lived experience becomes a beacon, a silent testimony to the possibilities of growth beyond suffering. You become an unwritten invitation to those still navigating their own pain, a living proof that transformation is possible. The wound is the gateway to your purpose, and by embodying this truth, you extend a quiet legacy of hope and empowerment that transcends words and touches the heart. You don't need to justify your healing. The true measure of your journey is found in the alignment between your purpose and your actions, in the consistency with which you live out the lessons learned through hardship. Transformation is the silent power within, a force that moves you to create a life of intention, where each choice reflects the wisdom born of suffering. You suffer. You rise. You become the quiet force that reshapes your destiny. This becoming is a profound act of self-mastery, a deliberate weaving of pain and purpose into a tapestry of meaning that endures beyond the moment. The wound is the gateway to your purpose. It calls you to a life lived with intention, a life that honors the complexities of your journey without seeking to erase its shadows. Within this honoring, you find peace, a calm acceptance of your story as it is, and a resolute commitment to shape what is yet to come. Within pain, your strength is born, not as a transient flame but as a steady light that guides you through the inevitable challenges ahead. Transformation is the silent power within, the quiet force that sustains you, empowers you, and ultimately defines you. You suffer. You rise. You become the quiet force that reshapes your destiny. This is the rhythm of your life, the steady cadence of one who has chosen to meet pain with openness, to live with purpose forged in the fires of adversity. The wound is the gateway to your purpose, and through this gateway, you claim your place in the world, not as one defined by suffering alone but as one transformed by it, empowered to inspire through the silent strength of your example. This silent empowerment is the legacy you carry forward, a quiet revolution of resilience and intentional living that shapes not only your own destiny but the lives of those around you. Within pain, your strength is born. This strength is the foundation of a life lived with authenticity and grace, a life that embraces the full spectrum of human experience. You don't need to justify your healing, it is a sacred process, a continuous unfolding of self that honors both the light and the shadows within. Transformation is the silent power within, the quiet force that propels you beyond suffering into a realm of purpose and possibility. The wound is the gateway to your purpose, and through this gateway, you step confidently into the fullness of your becoming, ready to live with intention, resilience, and profound quiet strength. You suffer. You rise. You become the quiet force that reshapes your destiny. This is not merely a statement but a lived truth, the essence of a life that transforms pain into power, suffering into strength, and hardship into hope. The wound is the gateway to your purpose, the threshold where your past meets your future, where your deepest wounds become the source of your greatest gifts. Transformation is the silent power within, and by embracing this power, you create a legacy of meaning that endures beyond suffering, inspiring all who witness the quiet mastery of your journey.